Uh, yeah, music. Okay. All right, and I think we must just sort of stand more in the middle and speak. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Robbie Potenza, one of the sons-in-law of Noel and Yvonne Garson, married to Fiona, their third daughter. And I would like to welcome you all here today on the occasion of the memorial for Noel Garson. And I would also like to thank you all and this community for the remarkable support that the family has got over the last while. We'll be listening to words from the family, as well as a few messages from people that haven't been able to make it here today. So, Callum.
Hello, everyone. Okay. I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Callum. I am Noel's grandson. I'm the son of Lisa, his eldest daughter, and Dugan, this guy over here. I'm going to be reading a speech that Yvonne wrote about her husband. My own votes of thanks must first go to Robbie and Fiona. Because of their proximity to us, they took on the burden of the last few difficult months. I could not have managed without them. Robbie's calm and wise presence as a caring doctor was always steadying to both of us. Fiona and I, after being summoned by Mary while we were shopping, experienced the moment straight after his sudden death and were able to comfort each other. Lisa, over the last difficult years, has been a tower of strength in so many ways, coming up from Cape Town as often as she could and managing so much behind the scenes. Our other doctor son-in-law, Charles, Philippa's husband, was often a great help with careful and considered advice all the way from New York. It was hard for Catherine and Philippa, our other daughters, to be so far away, but they visited as often as they could, never failed to keep in daily contact, and were able to speak to their father not long before he died. I think Noel felt held by their faithful and loving concern, as did I. These four women, Mary Motlabi, Martha Sichiri, Faith Moyo, and Sylvia Mashinbie, know how appreciative I am for their conscientious attentions to Noel and their support of me in so many ways. Mary, as his main caregiver, has been with us for 4 years since the beginning of his illness. She had become increasingly devoted and tender in her meticulous care of him. They developed a very comfortable relationship. It was good to hear them laughing together. I want to make special mention of Maria Framarp, a young minister we've known since she was a child, who walks in the light of her God's countenance. She dropped everything hours after Noel died to conduct a beautiful ceremony of prayers and blessings at his bedside, which his daughters, who had not yet arrived, were able to witness. Many of those gathered here will have read the tribute to Noel from the university. I simply want to say a few words about the Noel who belonged to me, our daughters, Lisa, Catherine, Fiona, and Philippa, and the grandchildren. He loved us all so much. Our 65 years of marriage naturally covered a vast variety of experiences: joy, sorrow, laughter, tears, anxiety, victories, troubles, ups and downs were all part of the fabric of our life. And through it all, we cemented an enduring partnership. He greatly enriched my life. In spite of widely differing temperaments, we met at a very deep level. As Noel's health declined, his discomforts, for which so little could be done, increased. But we were still able to spend many quiet hours together, going over good times and bad with laughter and tears, and listening to music which we both loved so much. It became increasingly clear to me that a wonderful refinement of spirit was taking place in him. All the clutter and noise of life was becoming unimportant. The majestic calm on his face in death will remain in my memory all my days. Over all the years of being in natural surroundings with Noel, the girls and I realized that he was the happiest being in nature and that it spoke deeply to his spirit. For the last few months of knowing that I would have to give him up, a fantasy crept into my mind. I dreamed that when it becomes my time to go, our spirits will unite, and in the words of an old Indian blessing, rise gently to reach the top of the everlasting hills, where the wind is cool and the sight is glorious. Who knows that it might not happen thus?
Hi everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Lisa. I'm the oldest of the Garson girls, and it's a great honor to be here, although this is a day I've kind of dreaded and not known what I would say. But I've done my best, and thank you all for listening. My dad was a man of many interests, but his true focus was on the essential things in life. He loved my mom, us girls, our families, his friends, his pets, nature, our country, sport, and much more. He was an emotional being and deeply valued love and connection, joy and laughter, courage, justice, nature, peace, loyalty, compassion. I think of all these qualities as part of his makeup. He was so engaged with my mom and his daughters and interested in every aspect of our lives. He cared so much about us and whatever we were going through. He wanted us to be happy above all else. Dad was very calm and measured. His philosophy was the one step at a time approach, preferably in bite-sized pieces. Whenever things went really wrong, my dad was my go-to person. If I was in a panic, he would find time to sit with me and help dissect my hysterical download into manageable segments that could be dealt with one step at a time. He was unusually in touch with his emotions and not afraid of being vulnerable. And he hated us going to bed on a quarrel and would keep us up for hours, even on a school night, to sort the issue out so that we could have a hug and go to bed peacefully. As a father of 4 daughters, he raised us to be strong and fiercely independent. We never felt less because of our gender. I remember in my early years at university, many of my friends were very angry with men in general, and their fathers in particular, for having been treated as second-class citizens. I never felt like that. I never felt a need to prove myself as a woman, just as a person. When we were in nature as a family, Dad would try to get us all away as far as possible from every other human. He loved pristine nature and never wanted his view or the peace sullied by anything or anyone. For him, there was nothing better than an empty beach or mountain, and that love and appreciation of nature was a true gift from him. Dad loved all animals. I have so many memories of him walking his dogs, stroking his cats, talking to them, taking them to the vets, brushing them, etc. He felt their inevitable death so deeply. He took his job as their guardian very seriously. His love of animals went beyond dogs and cats. I was lucky enough to do the otter trail with him. It was just the 2 of us and a party of 10 honeymooning young Christians. So, no offense to Christians. It worked in our favor because they mostly hung out together in one hut and Dad and I had the other hut. Unfortunately, we did have to share a hut for sleeping. And on the first night, Dad and I walked in and saw a most beautiful spider on the doorpost. We both marveled at it and left it there. A bit later, one of the men staying in our huts walked in and we heard a terrible bang. He had murdered the beautiful spider. Dad was horrified and from that moment on loathed the perpetrator, whom he nicknamed Spider Killer. Dad was the most disciplined exerciser and very concerned about our exercise habits. He was always asking me about my exercise routine and was only satisfied if I was doing something consistent. Even when he was practically bedridden, he still insisted on doing his 30-minute daily set of exercises. Up to the day before he died, he insisted on doing these. And when you asked him how he was, he would say, "I'm all right, I've done my exercises," even if his health was completely falling apart. I'm happy and grateful that Noel Garson was my dad. It was hard to watch his health diminish in the last 10 years,
But it was also an honor to be there with him and help where I could. And I'm so grateful to everyone else who helped support him through that difficult time. Thank you. Go well, my dad.
You can stand there, Catherine. You can use my voice to me. No, because this is streaming. Okay. I'm Catherine, the second daughter of Noel and Yvonne. In the week since our father died, many random memories have been popping up. These are just a few. Driving in with him to tennis at the Barneses on a Saturday afternoon in about 1974, a little black dog shot out in front of us. We hit it. Noel stopped the car, jumped out, pulled off his tennis jacket, and wrapped the badly injured dog in it. I held it and we sped off to a vet. He was distressed, but so gentle with the animal. The dog lost an eye, but survived. On holiday at Thimble in Nature's Valley in the late 1970s, where many of our friends pulled in, we would all hang our towels over the little wall. Noel's had disappeared. I overheard him saying to my mother, "I think that hippie's taken my towel." And sure enough, a few seconds later, long-haired, bearded, and very charming Pete Bussey emerged with Noel's green and orange beach towel wrapped tightly around his waist. One Sunday morning after they had been to a dinner party, he told us that a friend and colleague, Philippa, had had them in fits doing a rendition of the Monty Python Dead Parrot skit. I hadn't seen it yet, but could never not think about him all the times that I did. Him fighting for me when at the end of 1976, as a Standard 9 pupil at Parktown Girls, I had been accused of dropping my political views in an extremely mediocre Afrikaans essay. And for that, I was going to get a ronde nul. In my last face-to-face conversation with him in March, he brought it up 46 years later. He said that he had one regret, and that was not insisting, while he was having this out with the terrifying headmistress, Miss Waterfield, getting assurance that the essay would be marked, the accusing teacher, Mrs. van Willig, be called into the office to apologize. In the end, the essay got the mark it deserved. In that same conversation in March, he said in a soft, reedy voice, "I love all my daughters just the same." I want to thank my father. I want to thank him for working so hard to give us the best life possible, for excellent advice, appreciating intellectual rigor, instilling principles of integrity, for introducing us to the goons, the brilliant sports analyses, the intricate personal birthday poems, the wonderful conversations, for teaching me how to spell desiccate at a very early age, for cherishing our remarkable mother, for the steadfast protection and the watching over right until the end, for the walks, the swims, the surfs, the climbs, and for all the years of your beautiful, loving laugh. Bye, Dad. Gratitude floods me as I stand here, as we remember my dad, Noel. I think of my brilliant mom and the journey she's been on. Her strength,
clarity and decisiveness, guiding her as she navigated Noel's last years. She's shown us that sacrifice and acceptance are part of love and devotion. I think of my beautiful sisters and their endless empathy and care. There are no words. Then Robbie, where is he? My rock behind me, and a rock to us all. His medical excellence and his complex navigation of the doctor-to-family role, how he handled Dad's at times unfathomable medical conditions with deep thoughtfulness. Gian and Rosa, our darling adult children, and our dear friends for loving tribute, support, and food. His helpers, Mary, Martha, Sylvia, and Faith, remarkable, dedicated, fabulous women who made him feel safe. And then to my dad, I am grateful to him for so much. For the early morning swim, for soccer, for humor, for rigor, for thoughtfulness and deep reflection, for ethics and morals, for humility, for lack of judgment, for endless knowledge, for the love of pets, for the evening drink, for snorkeling and sea swims, for long family holidays, for the measured approach, for sound advice, for loyalty, for interest, and for looking after Mum and all of us with commitment and devotion. And mostly, I'm grateful for his last days, where although it was hard for him, he chose to speak to me for a long time. I now know that he was saying goodbye, and I will treasure that forever. Go in peace and happiness, Dad. We will be okay.
And I think it's my turn.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, she's got it.
Dad. Oh, okay. No, not Dad. Okay, I'm Philippa, the youngest. Can't believe Dad has gone. The ground has shifted underneath me. The big, strong tree, so tall and magnificent, has fallen. For the past few years, Dad grew frailer, but was always astute, funny, wry, grumpy, wise, argumentative, telling Mom the day before he died not to patronize him. Fiona, Robbie, Lisa, Mary, and his other amazing carers, who's sitting over there, did everything possible for him under beautiful Mom's guidance. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart for that. And I thank Catherine, too, for holding my hand across the pond. But this is what I want to remember now, my dad, the strong patriarch who took his responsibility to his family as to everything in his life with utmost dedication, warmth, and love. Dad in his study, the cartoon pinned to his door from one of Dad's many students, Prof hard at work, do not disturb. But disturb him we did with our sibling fights, our dramas, our raucous games. My friends that Dad dubbed the famous four, some who are here now, we all talked at once, which amused him no end. He found me funny too, my thatch hair, my tendency to eat too many cakes, get lost in a book. Dad appreciated eccentricity. He saw the funny side of people, but there was always gentle compassion to his humor, and he laughed at himself too. He and Mom adored all our friends and opened up our wonderful family holidays to them. He barely raised an eyebrow from his ritual chess games when in later years they would stream in with bongs and bongo drums. And the countless parties at 135 Dundalk Avenue that got so wild and out of hand. Mom and Dad never seemed to mind, even engaging the odd straggler who stumbled into their bedroom for late-night chats. Our family was quirky. As we've said, we listened to the Goon Show. We didn't get a TV when everyone else did. We drove battered hand-me-down cars. Material possessions were never very important. And Mom and Dad were always the tightest of units, bantering in a secret language we didn't understand. We may not have been the sons that Dad had always hoped for, but he didn't seem to mind. He taught us to be bold tomboys who could do whatever we wanted. He took us for early morning swims at Wits, to soccer matches, to play tennis and squash. He threw balls high in the sky for us to catch. He taught us not to fear the big waves, to scramble up and down mountains without fear of getting lost, which we often did with him at the helm, his hat bobbing maddeningly out of reach. But Dad was not afraid of our stormy tears either. He encouraged them and comforted us always. He adored his dogs, and those walks on the golf course were a beloved ritual, where anything and everything was up for discussion. I remember lying next to him as we sobbed when our dear Alias got run over. He was as strong as a mountain, but he knew how to grieve. He was the only person you wanted to speak to when you had a real problem. He was so wise and loving, and he never ever judged. And Dad was a Renaissance man. His academic and civic achievements were many, but he was also in his element with a spanner in his hand. He built my bird Avery from scratch, a work of art of pipes and steel mesh, and then he enlisted his colleagues in the department to help maneuver another Avery over the roof of our playroom into the backyard. Dad had high standards for us, but he didn't mind if we didn't achieve them, reminding us gently of what was really important. Dad, I'll miss you terribly, you magnificent tree. You're everything a big tree is meant to be. You spread your branches far and wide and your roots deep, and you nurtured so tenderly the little ones that sprung up around you. I was so lucky to be one of them, Dad. Your spirit lives on. Okay, now I have to just read something from Charles. He's very sad, my husband, very sad that he's not here. Okay, I'm actually going to take a gulp of champagne. Okay, this is Charles. I first met Noel and Yvonne in early 2000 when Philippa invited me to meet her parents for Sunday lunch. I went with a touch of trepidation, wondering what they would make of this slightly quirky boy Philippa was bringing home. Noel sized me up, flashed one of his quizzical grins, and welcomed me with a brotherly warmth. I soon realized that quirkiness was a prized commodity in the Garson household. And as my stomach was warmed by Yvonne's splendid cooking, so my mind was mesmerized by Noel's entrancing storytelling. Dear Noel, it was a treat and privilege to be in the presence of your stories, to witness your awe and love for the crazy, fallible, comedic history of humanity, how you saw a shared and connected human tale, to experience your unwavering curiosity, your dedication to an ethical code of living, learning and mentoring, to the plethora of truths. You defined for me the sanctity of lifelong learning and scholarship. Bon voyage, Professor, dear father-in-law. My deepest gratitude to you for being the father of my life partner, for creating, along with lovely Yvonne, the beautiful family into which I was lucky enough to be inducted by you on that glorious Johannesburg summer day 22 years ago.
Hi everyone, I'm Dubin. I'm an ex-son-in-law, but I think one of the marks of the man Noel was is that I have never felt like an ex. He's always been so kind and so loving that I still feel very privileged to be part of the Garson network. I want you just to take a moment to look at that beautiful picture of Noel. I first met the Garsons in the mid-80s, and they were a curious bunch. The beautiful house in Parkview, outside which was a fleet of ancient Volkswagen Beetles. And that juxtaposition of kind of cranky old weirdness and beauty and grace really characterized the family. Over the last year, I've been living away from Johannesburg, and it's made me really appreciate things that previously I took for granted. One of the things I appreciate the most is how we live as an incredibly close community in this town. And one of the hallmarks of that community is steadfastness and constancy. Noel embodied so much of that. He was an incredible plank in the community we live in. He held so much together and was such an inspiration in the way that he was forever kind, always wise, and very thoughtful. I think you'll all agree, though, that those wonderful features live on in his amazing daughters, who I remain so grateful to be close to, and also in his wonderful, wonderful grandchildren. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mapiri, the unofficial first granddaughter of the family. I stand here representing not only myself and the Mugwenas, which is my husband behind me, but also the Malibes. Malume. Bakwa Malibe, ba go leboga, ba go bona, ba re robala ka kgotso. I have wonderful memories with Grandpa, and this is what I want to say. Grandpa, I remember our walks in the Parkview golf course. I remember our long chats. Grandpa always wanted to be factual. And if he forgot a date, that meant he went straight to the study to go find the answers. I remember his love for coffee and a nice little piece of chocolate after lunch. I would always say, Grandpa, but coffee's not good for you. And he'd say, coffee is not tea. Coffee is coffee. Coffee is nice, but it's not good for you. One of the most remarkable memories I have with Grandpa was during a difficult time when I dropped out of university. And I found it very difficult to speak to anybody else because I was the first to graduate and high school and be accepted into university. And in that moment, he said to me, you write your history and you decide how you would like to be remembered. And no perfect story exists, but just live each day as it comes. Granny, the Garsons, you mean the world to me. Granny, I appreciate you and I'm so proud of you. I think you're the strongest woman I have ever come across. 65 years of marriage and the support that you've given to Grandpa has been amazing. My darling. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Una. I'm the oldest Lisa's daughter with Dugan, who just spoke. So this is just a small something that my brother Callum and I wrote for Grandpa. Our Grandpa was a great man, but he always stayed humble. His humility came through in the curiosity that he had for the world around him, and especially for the lives of his family. When we would see him and catch up, Grandpa would never accept a standard or boring response to his many questions. He was obsessed with what we were learning at school and university and was always interested in the content of our studies. He never assumed that he knew something before asking about it, and we feel like that is one of the greatest lessons that he taught us. And although he was a learned man, a professor, a dean, he never thought that his knowledge was superior and always wanted to find out the details from us directly. To this day, our family is obsessed with talking, dissecting life, and figuring things out together. Grandpa had a need to engage deeply with the specifics of everyone in the family. He would ask about weather, friends, careers, studies, relationships, and so much more. And he somehow kept track of everything you told him, even if it was months between visits. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandpa, for your part in building a family that talks and brainstorms and shares the load of life together. You gave us a perspective of curiosity and humility that we will take forward in all our lives. Sorry. So now I'm also just going to read a couple of things from the cousins who can't be with us today in New York. First is Alice, the eldest, Philippa's eldest daughter. So she says, Grandpa, you will be sorely missed by me and your 8 other grandchildren. Thank you for being so tolerant over the years. You never made a fuss when I insisted on patting your extremely soft hair every time I greeted you sitting in your big chair. You were so loved by the family, especially Granny. Her love for you taught me that it's so important to try and be the least selfish as possible in romantic relationships. Whatever it was, fish, chicken, eggs, she would without fail make sure you got the best piece. I will really miss you very much, especially carrying out carefully prepared meals for you, hearing your wise words on complicated matters of the heart, and listening to your fascinating anecdotes of your travels. I love you, Grandpa. This next one's from Leah, Philippa's second daughter. She says, I feel very lucky that I got to know Grandpa as an adult. Living so far away was really hard, but when we would go back, he would always be there, ready to chat with funny and sweet things to say. He began an amazing family that I feel really lucky to be a part of. He was so wise and sweet. I love you, Grandpa. And then Ella, Philippa's last daughter, says that she loved her grandpa so much and she's devastated she can't be here, and she's holding us all in her heart.
And she will make, I think, a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah.
That will show what she feels.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Uni. Well done.
Hi, I'm Gian, Noel's grandson. I have written a short poem in memory of Grandpa. Come through as raindrops on the cold gravel. A puddle will form, a pause in the cycle. Breaking into silence, the silence is not fair. As the puddle grows, a stream forms. Watch over that stream for us. Do not worry. The morning light will remind you of being a toddler. Walk lightly, my son. We will see you again. Watch the stream for us. Thank you.
Do you want me to do it? Will you do it? I'm reading this. Rosa, can I zoom in on it? Oh. Do you want to try and read it, darling? Okay. This is from Rosa. It's called Grandpa. Rosa is the daughter of Robbie and me. And she's feeling sad. So she said, Grandpa, I never understood why Grandpa held on for so long, and it only hit me after he let go. In some ways, it's worse knowing you are going to create a void and emptiness in someone's life than being the one left with the void. Let me do this, sorry. Where is he? Oh, okay. He died the way most wished to. His earthly form ran its last lap, swam its last stroke, latched onto its last possible breath. And although he no longer exists in the physical, he is in every sports game we watch, every classic novel we read, every family gathering we host, every squash game we witness, every historical book we open. The only form of life after death that I believe in is one that exists in the memories of those whom he loved and those that loved him. I know you are finally at rest, Grandpa.
I don't have that confidence in my voice. I'm going to stand here. Can you all hear me? Yes. That's wonderful. Dearest Yvonne, Lisa, Dugan, Callum, Una, Catherine, Fiona, Robbie, Gian, Rosa, Philippa, and in their absence, Charles, Alice, Leah, and Ella, and all friends and colleagues present today. It is indeed a great privilege and honor for me to be able to share with you all some of my memories and my life experiences with Noel. Elspeth, Noel's sister, 12 years his senior, and who is my mother, was introduced to her stepfamily when she was 11. Her father, George, married Wyn Tonkin in 1930, and then decided to take the whole family to Troon to visit his family and his aunts and uncles and parents who lived in Troon. Quite a thought in those days, I think, and brave. It was a time to cement. My mother describes the holiday to us with such joy and such happiness, because it was a time to celebrate and to cement foundations with her stepbrothers, Richard and Paul, and to meet her grandparents, and to meet her uncles and aunts in Scotland. It is a wildly exciting time for the young family. My mother describes one moment which she never forgot. When arriving at the Presbyterian Kirk in Troon late for a Sunday service, she encountered her grandmother at the door, who said to her, "Elspeth Garson, you're late. You must go to the English kirk." Noel was born in December 1931, a brother for Elspeth, and despite their age difference, a loving and caring bond developed between the siblings, which formed the foundation of our wider extended family to come. My earliest memory of Noel's visit to our home in the Waterberg was that he arrived with his nephew and niece, Jill and Lawrence Tonkin. They came by train. The train would have left Pretoria Central Station at about 1700 hours in the afternoon. Would have got to Modimolle at midnight, when the Firewater coach would have been shunted off onto a piece of the Nile River over a stagnant bit of water which was always abuzz with mosquitoes. The Firewater coach will then have been linked up at 5 o'clock in the morning to the goods train, which was affectionately known as the Mampur Express, and travel for another 4 hours over 40 miles to get to Firewater. It is my view, and I think, that because of these trips, and Noel made several of them, that his love for nature, which has been referred to, and his love of the Waterberg beauty happened as he traveled through the foothills of the Waterberg range in those 4 hours, stopping for milk, cans, and various other things along the way. It was a slow meander. Noel and later Yvonne's visits to the farm were always great fun. Lots of laughter, sport, mainly tennis and golf, some serious discussions about the current affairs of the day, an introduction for me to the world of politics, international affairs, and books. How to use an atlas, how to use a dictionary. Do you remember, Yvonne? Teaching me those things. Later visits would, of course, include the girls, as they each made their entry into our family and into the world. The foundation of our cousinly relationship certainly built like that over several consecutive and often occurring visits and relationships. And of course, there were trips for us to this mega place, which we call the Big Smoke, and visits to Broadlands in Rosebank, later to Elburn Road in Blairgowrie, and finally to Dundalk Avenue in Parkview. An introduction to city life before my admission to Pretoria Boys High School as a boarder, Noel and Yvonne invited me to spend some weeks with them at Broadlands. I think I was probably 11, roundabout. This introduction to city life was an epic adventure for me. Trolley buses, going to the cinema in the city centre, on my own, to be met by my cousin Lawrence, who had been briefed about what I would be wearing and which bus I would be on. I can see, and then to see Sink the Bismarck. Can't you see Noel's hand in that historical film, Sink the Bismarck? I will never forget it. I watched Noel and Yvonne. My whole life has been one of close association with this family. Noel and Yvonne's unwavering support for me through the challenging years of boarding school, of military service in the South African Air Force, medical school at Wits, and Noel and Yvonne's home always was a home from home for me. I watched Noel and Yvonne parenting their young daughters with dedication, with reasoned wisdom, with concern, and an attitude of cautious introduction to the realities of life, always accompanied by love, until they each in their own time and in their own way flew the nest. However, as you've just heard, they all knew that they were loved unconditionally, as I knew and know that I was loved unconditionally too. And Jill and our other members of our family were loved unconditionally. Noel and Yvonne built their marriage, their home, and their family on love. That is why the home is so strong today. In conclusion, allow me to read the following well-known passage about love, found in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul's famous chapter on love. He says this about love. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Noel and Yvonne, for me, lived out that love. I'm not suggesting that they were perfect, but I am saying that their home was always a place of love. I'm very privileged to be part of this family and this home, and I give great thanks for Noel's life, a full 90 years of life, a life well lived. He will be greatly missed, as has been said, by all of us. I salute his many achievements in his professional academic life, and I'm especially grateful for his love and mentorship and support in my own life. May we all know the peace which passes all understanding as we proceed into the days, weeks, and months to come. Thank you.
Carl, you've got to get my thing on. But he had a whole taken because of his jerseys.
Funny little things.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. I'm reading. Okay. I'm reading a letter that our family got from Noel's nephew, Jonathan Tonkin. He says, "Dear Yvonne, Lisa, Philippa, Fiona, Catherine, and families. I remember Noel as a kind, gentle, thoughtful, and intelligent man with a warm, approachable manner and an engaging twinkle in his eye. I sought his guidance a number of times over many years. His understanding of our collective foibles enabled him to provide sensible advice, whatever the circumstances. He was never judgmental, but always compassionate. He saw good where others might have seen differently. He lifted up where others sometimes bore down. Noel had a wonderful sense of humor, and he enlivened many occasions with his wit and amusing stories about us all, particularly my parents, Moira and Paul. I turned to him each time we celebrated some milestones in their lives, and he always willingly took part. Moira, who could sometimes be difficult to please, had the highest regard for Noel and knew that it was to him she could turn when the chips were down. As sad as this occasion is, I hope you will all find some comfort in your memories of Noel and the countless happy times you spent together. Noel lived a full life and achieved much in his career. He was greatly respected by his friends and colleagues, and he undoubtedly left his mark on Wits University, the great institution he served for so long. Be comforted, too, by the sure knowledge that he loved you all. I don't think I know anyone who had a greater love for family than Noel had for you all. His memory will remain an abiding presence in your lives, and I know he will watch over you always. I shall miss Noel greatly. He had all the qualities that we wish most that others see in ourselves. Noel was a good man. I am sorry that I cannot be with you today. Circumstances prevent me from being there, but you know that I am with you in spirit. I too will bid Noel farewell today. Please celebrate Noel's life today. He would want nothing else." Moving right along.
I'm reading a letter written by Arthur Morby, who was a longtime colleague of Grandpa's. In Cambridge. Noel Garson. Noel's departure was, like his life, distinguished but discreet. There was nothing showy or dramatic about the end, which seems to have been almost considered, like the caring and distinguished life which was ending. His great distinction was as an historian, a teacher, a builder of a school of teaching, a researcher, and a publisher of historical gems. I first knew him as a teacher. His commitment to teaching is very practically demonstrated by the growth of the history department under his care. From being just 3 members of staff in the mid-1960s when he became its head, to a substantial department when he retired. Furthermore, in challenging circumstances, he maintained the high quality of that teaching, demonstrated by his students being able to move with ease to the finest international universities. His teaching was, of course, not only of undergraduates. He was a conscientious supervisor of postgraduate research students who benefited not just from his meticulous scholarship, but also in many cases by his subsequent lifelong friendship. I was one of the many whose life was greatly enriched by his teaching, his fine scholarship, and his invaluable support and friendship. Like his teaching, his personal research was of the highest quality and continued almost to the end of his life. It is reflected in numerous published gems, all too often discreetly tucked away. His work is still cited in new publications today, and it is certain that scholars will make use of his meticulous research for years to come. He produced numerous judicious and influential book reviews and spent a number of years on visiting fellowships overseas, including a very happy year in his former Cambridge College, Sydney, Sussex. However, in the final analysis, it was his character and personality which stood out and will be long treasured. Judicious, caring, and compassionate, he was straight in all his dealings and a stranger to malice. Though he was concerned that details should be right, he educated me, the product of a classic grammarless English education, into not splitting my infinitives. His real concern was to maintain the highest of standards in all activities and relationships. When to these characteristics was added his energy and the embrace of his personal warmth, the result was a vast and worldwide circle of friendships. Friendships formed and sustained within his lifelong partnership with his beloved Yvonne, and in due course fostered by the vitality of his 4 devoted daughters.
Can I ask you all to please raise your glasses for a toast to Noel Garson, a life well lived and a death with dignity. Noel Garson.
Noel Garson.
No, Dad.
Are you going to sing? Are they singing?
Yes, she's singing. Okay.
Yeah, you must announce it.
Okay. We have a song to conclude. Mary will be singing for us.
Is it just Mary or are you singing with her?
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. We would like to invite you all to have something to eat and drink, and also if there's anybody else that would like to say something, feel free to participate in the talks. What? But no pressure.
We'd love to hear.
Okay.
Faith, who was one of his caregivers. To Prof. Noel, as a great father, Prof. Noel, your lessons will be never forgotten. Respect, love, and support. Your good memory, I will never forget your words. Magnesium is not a drug. Faith Moyo, thank you.